I was very interested, actually, how his obituary would read. And by obituary, I mean, the think pieces in the immediate aftermath of his death. Because he has a legacy that isn't entirely appealing in Hollywood. And sure enough, a lot of them made note of his most pronounced failure in, the first sentence, if not the headline. What are you guys' thoughts on his legacy, first of all?
Well, I mean, I'm going to jump the gun here and start. I know Heaven's Gate is the first thing that comes to mind, and rightfully so. And he did himself no favors on the making of that film. Let's not beat around the bush. I mean, he is responsible for the financial failure of that film more than anyone else. I mean, didn't he charge United Artists to use the land for the movie? I mean, that's one of the big reveals from the Peter Bach book, that was about the Heaven's Gate. But that should not be his legacy. Heaven's Gate should, how should I say it? Heaven's Gate actually, by today's standards, is considered a good film.
Yeah,
I think we could.
that's
I mean, a very good film.
In comparison to today, it's like an utter classic.
It's not going to be Waterworld. It's not going to be Ishtar. I mean, no, maybe Ishtar might in a couple of years, but it's not Waterworld. It's not these countless duds that have been released this century. Heaven's Gate actually is, in its final version, a very good film. Let's not discount that. I mean, Jeffrey Katzenberg looks like a putz in 1990 when he says, "Let's not release any more Heaven's Gates for Havanas." I can promise you, Jeffrey, that Havana will never be a good film. Heaven's Gate is a good film. Now, having said that, I went back and reread the interview with him last night that they did when American Sniper came out.
Right.
I think it was that, and that's a great interview.
Because he, just to set it up, he granted the Hollywood Reporter an interview around the time American Sniper was in theaters, because Clint Eastwood was a major boon to his career, really gave him his first big break and was very sweet to him, and he wanted to repay that kindness by talking well of Eastwood.
Yeah, no, and he did a great job on that. And that interview is actually very important because I want to talk about some of the ramifications of the interview later on, because that corresponds to something else that's been going on.
Because the interview went other places, and he didn't seem too pleased that
places.
the interview was going other places. It is a fascinating interview, I agree.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Is it on screen? Is it a video interview, or
it's a written Q&A.
Okay.
A written Q&A that you can read at your own convenience. You don't have to worry. You can take a break. Go get something. It's my kind of interview. You can take a break. Take a breather from it. But it's print. But Eastwood was a very important part. I mean, if it wasn't for Clint Eastwood, we would not be talking about Michael Cimino today. I firmly believe that.
I mean, but wasn't Eastwood someone who pretty much? I mean, if you're going to work with Eastwood, you're going to have to do this. Wasn't Eastwood somebody who pretty much curtailed his?
According to Cimino, no. According to
no.
Cimino, he felt very like a very essential part of that collaboration. He said Eastwood was very sweet to him and accommodating, and wanted him to make his movie.
But I mean, I've read that Eastwood curtailed some of his tendencies to maybe do retakes and so forth, and maybe make it
there
more complicated.
There might have been a little bit of that.
Oh yeah, I mean, indeed. Let's not. I'm sure there was that. But, I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, one of my favorite Dirty Harry movies is Magnum Force. And let's be very honest, Thunderbolt and Lightfoot is a great movie. It's a wonderful, wonderful film. And so Eastwood's contribution to Mr.
And Cimino co-wrote Magnum Force, just to let people know that might
not. Yeah, with John Milius. Can you imagine being in that room or being around those two and Eastwood and everyone else? That's just, to me, surreal and just wonderful at the same time. But I think Cimino's influence, I want to say that Cimino has a great influence, but this goes back to Illeana Douglas the interviews and our interview and the one I listened to the whole Bret Easton Ellis podcast she did a couple days ago. I don't think people going to the movies today who know who the hell Michael Cimino was.
No, they don't. Well, obviously, they don't. I mean, he hasn't. The last movie was Sun Chaser, and what was that? The mid '90s. So that's
96
ago.
96, and that's what I really hate. That's the last feature we get from him. We go. I mean, talking about diminishing returns, we go from the Sicilian, which was never realized as what could have been a really truly great film, at least as we've seen it. I have not watched the Blu-ray cut of it, and I will promise before I die I will watch that movie. But I'm not really running out to see it right now. But
I can't imagine sitting and watching that movie again.
It's hard. It's a hard movie.
Even if it's supposed to be improved, I can't.
Yeah, no, I mean, it would have to be. The improvement can't exist, unfortunately, that it needs to have in it. And then you have the remake of Desperate Hours, which is most fun while watching, but you watch it again, it's like, and then
which I think that was. I think Desperate Hours happened because they offered it to Mickey Rourke, and Mickey Rourke said, "I'll only do it if Cimino does it," because he was pulling for Cimino.
He's
that's the only reason why he got attached to that.
He was such a nice man during that phase of his life. And then there's Sun Chaser. Which is just, I don't remember. I remember I rented it in '96. I can't tell you much more than that, guys. I don't remember it at all. But
to me, when I think of Cimino, I always think of. I never think of. I mean, as much as I like Heaven's Gate, it is problematic.
That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said about Heaven's Gate. By the way, Dean, I think, Dean, you should be, no matter what else you do, it's problematic. And it's to say, Dean Treadway, nicest commentary on Heaven's Gate ever recorded.
But as much as I love it, love a lot of things about it, it's really, obviously it's Deer Hunter. That's the number one thing. I mean, that's his most fully realized movie. It's the most it's the most moving of all of his movies. I love Thunderbolt and Lightfoot too, but the Deer Hunter is obviously the one he'll definitely be remembered for. I mean, say what you will about Michael Cimino, but if you come out of your career, and you have Heaven's Gate, Deer Hunter, Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, Magnum Force, and as a writer, and Silent Running as a writer too. Mm-hmm. I think you've done pretty well, and Year of the Dragon too.
Yeah, I mean, Year of the Dragon to me is sort of like, even though it is not regarded by, I guess, a critical consensus, I think that that as a visual, just pure visuals, that movie has some of the greatest sequences of that time in the 80s. I mean, that scene in the restaurant, the shootout in the restaurant, and you could actually make the argument that he wanted to make that whole movie for the shot of the lead actress in her apartment at dawn in Manhattan of the skyline. That's a great shot. I mean, in her.
But why did he have to pick that actress? I think that's what killed that movie. Is she's just so horrible in it.
Has she ever done? Let me ask you this: has she ever done anything?
I've never seen her in anything else.
Does she work at my Barnes and Noble? I mean, let me ask you that. I mean,
she's the absolute worst. I would maybe put that as one of the 10 worst performances in a major motion picture ever.
Really?
Ever, like going back to silent era. I mean,
my God,
I'd put that in top 5.
Well, it's a shame they couldn't get Joan Chen, but I don't think she was of age. But
I mean, she's just so bad. It takes you right out of the movie.
But now I'm willing to give you that because I can't defend her performance. I mean, but it's not her performance you really care about. It's really Mickey Rourke, Raymond J. Barry,
and John Lone.
Very good at it. And John Lone's. It is John Lone's movie. I mean, he steals that movie from everyone. he is superb in that movie.
Yeah. I do like Raymond J. Barry, and I like the woman playing Mickey Rourke's wife.
Carolyn.
My God, she's great.
I tried to get her a few years ago, and she's an instructor now at a university and for acting, and I communicated a little bit with her, but I wasn't able to get her. But she's really good, and for me, you talk the emotional high point of Year of the Dragon, because Year of the Dragon is a special movie for me too, because I saw it as a teen when it first came out, and I was kind of wowed by it, but wowed by it in a way that was different from, the stately epics like Godfather or Gandhi or something. I was it felt a little disrespectable. And yet it was an epic.
It does. Yeah, I mean.
But the emotional high points of that movie, for me, is the relationship between he and his wife, and Mickey Rourke was such an emotive actor, and yet undeniably manly at the same time. I mean, that's a really difficult combination to master, and he had it in spades, especially back then.
Oh yeah, in the 80s.
I think that was very special.
Yeah, I mean his performance in that, especially the end. When the funeral procession for John Lone, I want everyone arrested. He's trying to have everyone arrested. The funeral procession, It's so crazy, but it's so well done. I think between that and the Pomegranate Village and Barfly, he's at the height of his acting prowess. I really do believe that.
And obviously he felt that Cimino brought something out of him because he was loyal to Cimino. But that brings up one other point that connects Year of the Dragon to The Deer Hunter, and that both of those films were accused of racist viewpoints. So much so that in the case of Year of the Dragon, the studio caved and put a kind of a disclaimer on it that this does not represent the totality of the Asian American experience, in America. Fair or not fair for either of those things?
Well,
unfair.
It's unfair, but because I look at Year of the Dragon as kind of like the unofficial sequel to The Deer Hunter, with Mickey Rourke playing the Robert De Niro character after the war. I've always felt that. And whether you agree or not, I mean, there's. How else is he supposed to make this movie? And I know I'm going to get, if I get attacked for that, that's good because that means more hits for the show. But how else was he supposed to do this? I mean,
it's about the Chinese mafia.
Yeah, I mean, how else? How would he not be accused of racism?
But it's the same thing that it's the same thing they criticized Godfather for. I mean, I think it's just something that you run the risk of if you do anything in that genre.
Yeah. I think I agree.
I mean, do the Russians complain when they do Russian mafia movies? No, they love it. They think it's cool.
I don't want to find out.
They love it.
I don't want to find out.
They
really don't want to find out. I mean,
I think they clearly embrace it. I mean, I've never heard anything about the Russians being mad about a Russian mafia movie. So I think they love it. I mean, how are you going to make a movie about the Chinese mafia? But let's remember, the reason that movie got so much shit is because The Deer Hunter got so much shit, and that's what's unfair. Because that Russian roulette scene, which everybody was mad, first of all, that movie won Best Picture over Coming Home, which is a much gentler and humanistic look at the Vietnam War. I don't know if it's much more humanistic than the other film, but it at least doesn't include any. It doesn't include any warfare in it.
Right.
But I think people were mad. More liberal people were mad that won over Coming Home, and that intensified the examination of the Deer Hunter's Vietnam sequences. And that in doing that, they found that, I guess they came to the conclusion that Russian roulette didn't happen in in Vietnam. Now, how would people know that? I don't know.
No. Let me say something.
Even if it didn't happen, it's a story.
Right. You are allowed to take liberties. You are allowed to take some liberties. But let me say something. I took a course in my junior year of college on Vietnam films. Like all the movies made about the Vietnam War, I guess up till Full Metal Jacket, I want to say. Might have been one or two after that, but maybe Hamburger Hill. And, you know, after watching The Deer Hunter and coming home on the big screen again, I like coming home, but, you know, from what I've read and what I know about the movie was supposed to end a lot different than Bruce Dern going out into the sea and committing suicide. It was supposed to be him going in the middle of the one of the California freeways and started shooting people. That movie had a much different ending.
That's not a Hal Ashby ending.
No, it's not a Hal Ashby ending at all. But I'm just saying, I like Coming Home. I think Coming Home is a very good movie, but I think The Deer Hunter is an equally, if not powerful movie.
I think they're both very good movies. I mean, I don't know why you have to poo-poo on one to like the other.
Well, that's the society we live in, unfortunately.
I do have to say, I do admire The Deer Hunter. I've never fully embraced it because I see in it a lot of what Pauline Kael didn't get about it, which is mostly De Niro's performance. I mean, I don't know. I think De Niro's a little too stoic in every manage to actually come across as much of a human in it. And since he's the anchor of it, I mean that accounts for a lot. However, when you have Chris Walken and John Cazale and John Savage, I mean they really bring the fire to the movie for me. Particularly Walken and Savage.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree more with you, Jamie. I mean, when we talk about The Deer Hunter, I mean, yes, we like Robert De Niro. Don't get me wrong; it's still better than The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle or the Meet the Fucker movies or whatever. But it's really Walken, Savage, and Cazale that we really speak of in that movie.
And to a certain extent, Meryl Streep as well.
Oh no, Meryl Streep definitely. Oh, you're absolutely right, Dean. Absolutely.
So, I think that maybe Cimino was a great director for Christopher Walken, because in a way they're both kind of. Are you kind of from another planet? Because I felt that way about Cimino, particularly in the last decades of his life, when gosh knows what was happening in his life. I mean, I'm not going to talk about plastic surgery and all that kind of stuff, but I mean, he looked vastly different, and vastly different in a way that does not come from just natural aging.
Yeah.
And so I would think maybe the experience of his career, of all the dejection and bad press and all that kind of stuff, I mean, that would do a number on anybody's psychology. Maybe it did a number on his, I don't know. But I got to tell you, because we're talking about Heaven's Gate, we've talked about it in the past, and we've been criticized by one of our YouTube listeners who insists that Heaven's Gate is a masterpiece, and we shouldn't talk badly about it. But
well, we don't talk badly.
I don't think we say anything bad. I mean, it is. Look, it is problematic. I mean, there's some really bad, unintelligible dialogue in it. You can't figure out what's going on in part of it. You know, it's beautiful to look at. I mean, there's the photography, and the art direction, the costumes, even the music is unimpeachable. I mean, like, just absolutely all the money is up there, but there's just a sort of emptiness to it that's that I don't think the director was going for.
Right.
I think Cimino wanted it to be incredibly emotional, and it just doesn't hit those heights. So,
well, Heaven's Gate, and by the way, there is a documentary on the making of Heaven's Gate. I don't know who produced it.
It's based on the book.
It's based on the book. I know that it aired on Station Ion or something, and that's the copy that's ripped on YouTube. It's ripped in 8 or 9 parts. It's essential viewing. It's a great documentary on the making of that film. But I don't think there's a better example. Like when people talk about the divide between art and commerce, Heaven's Gate is the prime example. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's textbook. So I think it's a fascinating, in terms of the production of that film, I think it's fascinating in that regard. Because here you have an auteur, he's coming off of The Deer Hunter, he feels like he can conquer the world. And if given the opportunity, maybe he can. And he wants to approach this film like a Michelangelo would approach a work of his, as meticulous and true to his own vision as humanly possible. And that means taking a completely uncompromising position as a director against the studios, which makes you seem like a little brat, because it's the studio that's giving you the money to achieve your dream. They want you to achieve your dream, but they don't want you to be so wasteful. So I see both sides of the coin, and I'm all for the artist, but at the same time, I don't think great artists necessarily have to be irresponsible, and I do think he was irresponsible in the making of that film.
Right.
Well, he was doing drugs at the time, right? I mean, he was doing cocaine, right? So that to me is irresponsible. I mean, you just shouldn't be doing that while you're making a film, or drinking or anything like that. It's too important. It's too expensive a proposition. You got too many people. You just shouldn't. As a director, you shouldn't be doing that. I mean, maybe an actor can or something. I think that's really irresponsible
supposedly, being that it's really funny, supposedly, according to one of the many biographies I read on Sam Peckinpah, the one movie where he was supposedly straight for most of the time is The Wild Bunch. That he really is in command of his faculties.
And that's why that's his best movie.
Yeah, I mean, everything else forget. I mean, obviously, Convoy is I'm convinced that Convoy is a competition between him and Chris Christopherson to see who can snort the most cocaine.
Right.
During production,
yeah.
But
and there's also he also strikes me as kind of like it sounds like a weird comparison, but like a Prince figure. You know how Prince always had the female proteges, whether it be Vanity or Apollonia or Diamond and Pearl or all of that. Well, I think he had the same thing with Heaven's Gate. Who was the girl in there that he insisted and nobody else wanted her because they couldn't understand her? Was it Isabelle
Huppert?
Yeah. And then I think the same thing applies to somebody like Ariane, what you were talking about, Year of the Dragon. I think it was one of those dynamics.